pause. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so we had a little bit of an interruption there, and I think both Jim said something that I think we can all agree with, that there are people far holier than myself, and Jim said than himself, who are in the other in the other Christian confessions. But the fullness of the faith, I think we can both agree, Jim, is in the Orthodox Church.
Mhm.
And if you want to pick it up from there.
Well, yeah, in the first part of this interview, we did talk about my reason for joining Orthodoxy, which were quite multiple. And
Right.
at the top of the list was the fact that the Orthodox worship as the original church worshipped,
Yes.
Going back to the 4th century when Constantine legalized it. And by the way, I don't deny that there are problems in the modern hierarchy of Orthodoxy. I give an example in my book, and I talk a little bit about how some people may be a little disappointed when they attend a Orthodox church to find that people aren't any more politically awake in some Orthodox churches than non-Orthodox churches, because getting their news from the mainstream media. Although I do believe that on the whole, the Orthodox churches are more awake. You have people who went through communism in the Soviet Union. You have people, Syrian Christians, who have been the target of the Zionists, both in Israel and America here, and they're very awake to what's happening. So I think on the whole, people are a little more awake, but I certainly met a lot of Orthodox Christians who are quite faithful in their observance of the liturgy on Sunday, but not really alert to what's going on. I kind of like to bridge that gap a little bit too.
Yeah.
But as far as the faith goes, there's no question that the miracles were done by the Orthodox saints, and that their character was immaculately, rigorously obedient to Christ. And this is, again, as I've said more than once, it's something that in the West we've really forgotten about, and the principles that we live by.
Yeah, I see this now. Again, growing up in the Bible Belt and with the mega churches all around, and pastors wearing $2,000 Hugo Boss suits, and
it's not according to what you just told the rich young man.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I do see that, because in the first part of this in the interview, you gave a litany of all the things that are wrong now with America, and how bad things are getting, and and I'm not going to go down that list. You gave it, and it's just obvious, and it's obvious to me for the first time in a long time, and it is equally obvious to me that we're losing a lot of grace, it seems like. And again, we come back to your book, Missing Saints, Missing Miracles. That's equally part of it. You said something that maybe the reason we don't see a lot of miracles is because we don't see a lot of saints here, or and but that doesn't mean that all is lost. And I you said what they had in common, and clearly, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but was they had their mind focused on Christ.
Right.
Okay. Do you see America becoming Orthodox, James?
I sure would like to see it happen.
Yeah.
One of the problems is that we're actually under oligarchical control, which runs the media and runs the school system, and runs the government right down to the state level. And so we saw how in March of 2021, Pascha was canceled, and churches were told no one can come to church.
Right.
If you do, you got to wear a mask and stand 6 feet apart. And there were many courageous Orthodox theologians who spoke out against this, but they weren't paid attention to much. I sincerely hope that America will Orthodoxy is growing in America, that's for sure.
Mhm.
More and more people are finding out that the, looking past the confusion of all these Protestant denominations and saying, wait a minute, something's not right here. And we've got to go back and find the original faith. That's often how you find the truth, is you go back to the most ancient documents, regarding a lot of things. So I'm hopeful that may God have mercy on this sinful nation and sinful people like me, that this nation will become Orthodox. I know they'll be pleasing in God's sight. We know that the saints who were Orthodox pleased God. He granted them the ability to do miracles. So there's no question about that. It's just that we're up against some strong odds, and we also know that the Book of Revelation does prophecy a very difficult ending for the world under the Antichrist, and that certainly seems to be where we're headed. But I'm also reminded of the Book of Jonah, where the city of Nineveh, God prophesied doom for Nineveh, but when Nineveh repented, God withdrew his prophecy of doom. So I pray for God's mercy that we might be like Nineveh. The odds are against us, but certainly God expects us to try. There was one saint who said that this is more than 1,500 years ago. He said, even if you fall down 1,000 times, rise up again 1,000 times until the day you die. So we need to keep trying.
Right.
And for me, my meager effort is this book, which one good thing about the book is that it's very short. It's not a 500-page tome, which will intimidate someone. It's the basics of where we went wrong in America and how we lost track of orthodoxy. And I'm hoping that it will be, one more asset that God might use to make America Orthodox. If we became Orthodox, that would be amazing. I think that if we truly repented and became Orthodox, that we'd see a lot of the doom, and at least the doom would be lessened. And we would certainly see a great improvement in our lives in America. So yeah,
I completely agree with you, because otherwise, I mean, I do think we're in for persecution. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I think today the Senate passed a bill called the Respect for Marriage Act, in which it legalized or gave legal codification to gay marriage. So that which is already legal thanks to Obergefell decision, but now I was listening to Dick Morris, and he said this is what they're going to use to go after not just the gay, the baker who won't bake the gay cake, but the pastor who won't marry the gay couple.
Right. They would go after the Orthodox Church and say that if you don't marry gay couples, and as I mentioned in my book, we have an Greek archbishop in America who actually baptized the children of two gay celebrities, which is wrong on two counts. Number one, the Orthodox Church doesn't recognize gay marriage. Number two, we're not supposed to show deference to rich people, celebrities, over the average person. So that's why I say we have troubles within our own hierarchy here within Orthodoxy. But we absolutely need to stick to the principles that were taught by the Bible, and that were consistently followed by the saints throughout 4,000 pages and 2,000 years of history. Absolutely unchanging. No backing down. The Orthodox Church is not like the Protestant Church, where the elder board or the pastor just says, hey, we're gonna have a new form of worship starting next week. No, it's basically stayed the same. There have been some tweaks, since the 4th century, but some of them necessary because of electricity and things like that. They no longer use candlelight exclusively, but we absolutely. I pray that this country could become Orthodox, or at least lean towards orthodoxy and have more Christians appreciating the importance of the traditional faith.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you know, we always want to be hopeful, but then again, if persecution does come, Tertullian, the father of Western theology, complicated figure, I'll grant you that, said something very profound. He said, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church, and the more you persecute the church, is what he's trying to say, is the more it will grow. And if you go back, if you go to the Iron Curtain countries now,
Mm.
they were at least one generation, some of them two generations under communism, two and a half, you could say. Their 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 orthodoxy is exploding. I'm not talking about just Russia. I'm talking about Serbia. I'm talking about Bulgaria. I'm talking about Romania. I mean, the back in '99, I think it was, in Moscow, they built the Church of Christ the Savior, or rebuilt it, because Lenin destroyed it, or Stalin destroyed it. And it was the largest Orthodox church in the world. Well, about 10 years later, they built one in Serbia, St. Sava, which is even bigger. And now, from what I understand, in Romania and Bucharest, they built one even bigger yet. Now, you can say, well, this is showing off. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think these people have had it up to here with godless atheism, and they're just shoving a giant middle finger in the face of secularism. And here in America, even in Oklahoma, again, the buckle of the Bible Belt, they're closing churches everywhere. I mean, it's astonishing to me. And I never thought of, now I'm not talking about Orthodox churches, obviously, but I'm talking about your Protestant denominational churches.
Mm.
So I mean, if it requires persecution for us to be chastised and to grow, then it's God's church. He knows what it's doing. I don't know if a lot of us will have the strength to go with it. I'd like to think I would, but I mean, I'm not going to sit here and judge. It's but um, I want to close on this, if you don't mind, and then I'll let you have it. This book is very edifying. Again, I cannot recommend it enough. It's very enlightening and it's very hopeful. And it's not a bunch of fairy tales, okay, like pious legends or anything like that. It's very well documented. And again, it's easy to read. And I implore every Orthodox person who reads this blog or is watching this podcast to buy it as a Christmas present for somebody in their life or themselves. It's that good. James, I'm going to turn it over to you and give you a couple of minutes to finish off, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate this is actually the first full podcast I've done on this book. Mm-hmm. I do have others lined up, which are
very flattered.
Which are non-Orthodox hosts, but they liked the book enough to be interested in hearing more. And of course, that's what I'm interested in reaching is the non-Orthodox communities to help make America more Orthodox. And I'm hoping that the arguments of logic and historical fact that are in the book will help people to make that conversion. America's in a lot of trouble right now.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up as a kid in the 50s, and I had my own problems, but it was such a different country back then. I mean, it was moral. We were prosperous. Between the Korean War and the Vietnam War, we had a 10-year period of no wars, peace. It was peace and prosperity. And but we're also a moral nation. There was no abortion. There was no gay marriage or transgenderism back then. Nobody would have dreamed of such a thing.
No.
America was pretty good at one time. I'll say that much. We had a golden era, and I was lucky enough to experience that as a child. But right now, this country's on a moral precipice. Yeah. And I do believe that it's obviously obedience to Christ's commandments, which are necessary to bring us out of that. And the saints in the Synaxarion demonstrate that. with such utter consistency through the centuries, through every country, all over the world. So yes, I'm interested. I should probably mention, I'm sure you'll be included this, but my website is jamesperloff.net,
Yes, absolutely.
and you can find my other books listed there, which talk
Mm.
about the oligarchical control of America for those who
Mhm.
don't know about it, as well as many articles on that and on the general history of America, what you call the backstory that
Mhm.
the mainstream media news doesn't tell you, whether you're talking about the Spanish-American War or the Lusitania or Pearl Harbor or Korea
Mhm.
or Vietnam, or when Reagan bombed Libya in '86 or 9/11. I mean,
Mhm.
there's always been another story that the mainstream media, which is so more tightly controlled today than ever before. I'll
As-
give one example.
Yeah,
Okay,
astonishing. Yes, go ahead, please.
I told you I have friends who are Syrian
Uh-huh.
Orthodox Christians.
Uh-huh.
When we bombed Syria in 2017 with cruise missiles,
Uh-huh.
there was not a single newspaper in America that objected to it
No.
or even questioned it. Not one, not
Mhm.
one newspaper in all of America in the
Mhm.
mainstream. Now, in the alternative media, we said, wait a minute, the Constitution gives the right to make war to the Congress, not the president. Does he have the right to unilaterally bomb another country? We also pointed out that you cannot dismantle chemical weapons, which was the reason for the bombing. By bombing them,
Mhm.
you would explode them in the atmosphere, and you would kill thousands of people. The people at
Mhm.
the Pentagon obviously knew that
Mhm.
this bombing of Syria was
Mhm.
completely unjustified.
I agree.
Um, um, but not a single newspaper in all of America said no. That's how tightly they're controlled now. There's just 5 corporations that control the media in
Mhm.
America now. They are Time Warner, um, um, Disney,
Disney.
News Corp,
Mhm.
NBC Universal, and CBS Viacom.
Mhm.
That's it.
Mhm.
And except for somebody like Tucker Carlson on Fox,
Yeah,
step
yeah,
outside the box a little bit. But other than that,
yeah.
you really see no objection to the mainstream narrative that the government's pushing, whether it was on COVID or wars or anything else. People need to wake up. So again, on my website, jamesperloff.net, I'm also on Twitter as James Perloff, but I'm heavily shadow banned. I
I'm
mean,
sure.
98% of
Uh,
my outreach on
yeah,
Twitter has been blocked.
yeah,
But I'm now on Gab, but I'm trying to,
yeah.
extend my
Yeah,
outreach there.
it's jamesperloff.net. I highly
Mm,
recommend you go there. Not you, my our listeners, and especially download some. We can buy his books, but also download some of his podcasts or in interviews, especially God is Real, which has had over what 3 million views.
Well, 3 million that YouTube admitted to. They were really slowing down the count over the
Oh yeah,
last year or so.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was over 3 million, but it was about 3 million acknowledged views. And that was on the all the defects of Darwin's theory of evolution, which was
yeah.
used to try and pretend that God had not created us, but we just arose
Right.
by chance.
Well, we're going to bring this to a close.
Mm,
However, I have a feeling I'm going to call you for another interview, and I really
mm,
do want to talk about the oligarchy. And I'm just taking some notes here because I'm already. So if you're willing to put up with me again, James,
mm,
I will do it. We'll give this a couple of weeks or so, a month, but
mm.
I I also want to tell people when you do go to jamesperloff.net, um, there are some other videos that you recommend. You also recommend them also in this book. Let me see, I highlighted it as a hidden history of the United States. Am I reading that right, James?
Slightly different.
Yeah.
The Secret Founding of America by Nicholas Hagar, I believe it was.
Right. The
And
secret founding of America.
yeah,
Yes.
but that's a video series by Chris Pinto. People should start with Hidden Faith of the Founding Fathers.
Right.
And but there's a whole a series on the secret beginnings of America, which, yes, there were Christian exiles from Europe who were trying to, practice their faith freely,
Uh-huh.
as brought out in the in Plymouth. when the settlers landed there. But there are also a lot of Freemasons and secret society
Sure.
members who wanted to use America as the springboard for
Mhm.
worldwide revolution by
Mhm.
getting rid of all the
Mhm.
governments that they exploited to found the New World, namely
Mhm.
Spain,
Mhm.
France,
Mhm.
and England. You know, the moment the French and Indian War ended, boom, the British became the bad guys,
Yeah.
and we kicked them out, and suddenly we were I think arguably, but we were the first really monarchy-free country,
Mhm.
and the oligarchs wanted to get rid of the monarchs unless there was somebody they could
Mhm.
get to compromise with them, because once they get rid of the monarchs, they can establish so-called republics or democracies,
All
and
right.
they would control who the people voted for through the power of the
Mhm.
press, as they're doing now.
Oh,
And now
it's
they can't even trust the vote counting system. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
that's
now it's like the mask is off. But
yeah.
definitely that's going to bring us to another series of interviews, and I'm really excited about that. But right now, I'm really excited, and again, I cannot stress this enough. Please buy this book, and then go to jamesperloff.net, and he's got several other books, including Tornado in the Junkyard. You named them, but go ahead and name a few more
Oh,
if you don't
well,
mind.
the Truth is a Lonely Warrior is
That one, yeah.
got a primer on the oligarchy, and
Mhm.
there was an earlier book I did in 1988 called The Shadows of Power, which discussed it on a more limited level, and another book that supplements it is 13 Pieces of the Jigsaw,
Mhm.
and also my book on COVID is there too, and
Right.
two books on Darwinism.
Mhm.
The main one was you know with about 700
Right.
endnotes, Tornado in a Junkyard, but there's this really short one called The Case Against Darwin that you
Yes,
can open up.
and
Yeah.
I do recommend that. But anyway, James, thank you. It's been a great blessing to interview you, and I appreciate that.
Thank
And
you.
good luck with a new book. And uh, onward and upward. Anyway, give my best to your wife. And
Mm.
anyway, and we shall, in God's good time, talk again.
Okay, sure. I would look forward to that. Yeah, there's a lot to be known. I always say that um, the politics that are going on in the world are actually a manifestation of spiritual warfare
I
on a
agree.
human
I,
level,
I,
and
I
that's what my books are basically dealing with. It's Satan's work
yeah, it
being
is.
carried out through human hands, politics.
I completely agree with you. So I do know what we're going to talk about next. Okay. Well, you take care.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
God bless, George. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Okay. How do I stop this? Oh, there. Did I stop it? No, I didn't stop it. Stop video
Okay.
and end.